I absolutely love Nintendo Land. It makes great use of the Wii U gamepad with incredibly fun minigames, and I still think it's one of the greatest local multiplayer games Nintendo has ever made. Every time I play this game with my friends or family, it's an absolute blast, with so many moments of uncontrollable laughter. And I still enjoy playing it to this day, as it's held up really well. It's such a fantastic mix of nostalgia and new ideas, remixing classic franchises in fun and fresh ways. The concept of a Nintendo theme park full of franchise-focused minigames is just incredible, and I'd love to see a sequel that builds on what came before. Since the original relied so heavily on the gamepad's unique features, I don't really think there's any smooth way to port it onto the Switch. So instead, I'm hoping for a full-on successor, and today I'm going to be going over some of my ideas and concepts for what that sequel might look like. So join me today as we imagine a Nintendo Land 2. This hypothetical Nintendo Land 2 will launch on the Nintendo Switch, even though the next generation of Nintendo consoles is seemingly right around the corner. As much as I would like to make this game the launch title for the next system, I can't really design minigames around hardware that hasn't been revealed yet. So for now, this will just be a Switch game. And as always with these sorts of concept videos, you'll have to use your imagination a bit to get the full picture of what I'm describing, but I'll do my best to use footage that matches what I'm saying. Now let's get into it. The original Nintendo Land included 12 minigames, and the sequel has a total of 14, with 6 being returning franchises and the other 8 being new ones. I'll go over the specifics of each minigame later on, but for now let's cover some of the more general stuff about the game. The basic structure is pretty much identical to the first games, just bigger and better this time around. The main plaza is a lot larger, but still has plenty of Miis walking around representing real online players, with Miiverse-style posts above their heads like in Splatoon. Visually, the new main plaza will keep the same vibrant colors and overall design, just even more graphically impressive. The main system of earning coins in minigames you spend to earn items returns, but this time you can choose where the items are placed in the main plaza. You can still collect all the music tracks from the minigames, but this time there's a dedicated song player where you can select the track specifically and choose what song is playing in your plaza. And it goes without saying that all 14 minigames come with tons of incredible new remixes of classic themes, as that was one of the best parts of the original. There's also unlockable outfits in the coin machine for your Mii to wear around the plaza, themed around the minigames of course. So your Mii can wear a Mario suit, angel wings from Kid Icarus, or a full power suit from Metroid. Monita is back as your tour guide, working as the tutorial system for all the attractions and rewarding your accomplishments throughout the game. One of the most exciting new additions is the inclusion of online play, letting you play online with your friends and family in real-time matches. You can easily make an online room where you can select what multiplayer games to play. Or maybe you just want to play online matches against random opponents for fun, which is also an option. This will massively improve the replayability for solo players, as there's always a way to play with others. And even if you're playing offline, the multiplayer-only attractions now have a new option to play with CPU players, so you can still enjoy the minigames that require 2 or more players, even if you're by yourself. Obviously, the single-player attractions can't be fully played with others online, but you can compare high scores and see where you place on global and local leaderboards. And there's even a ghost mode where you can race against the ghost of other online players to try and beat their best time. In the main plaza you can see recent players you played with, giving the whole game a new feeling of connection and community. And the last big feature aside from the new minigames themselves is a side experience called Classic Mode. This mode includes the 3 competitive minigames from the original Nintendo Land, which relied heavily on the dual screen functionality of the gamepad. Thanks to online play, these minigames can be enjoyed in a new way. Since you can see entirely separate screens when playing online with friends, it preserves that unique experience and lets a whole new audience find out what made it so special. Alright, now let's dive into my concepts for all the new attractions. While there are a few returning franchises like Metroid and Zelda that are similar to their previous versions, they're still entirely new experiences created for a different system. I made a few concept logos for each of the new attractions, but they're made by hand, so don't be too harsh on them. I know they don't look perfect, they're just supposed to capture the general idea I'm going for. And first up, we have 4 new team attractions. Splatoon Turf Wars is a simplified version of the usual Splatoon gameplay, but this time you have 25 Turf War style levels to complete. Each level has a 3-minute timer with one simple goal: cover more turf with your ink than the CPU opponents. The stages are huge with lots of verticality. Each stage has a set number of enemies, but splatting them won't permanently take them out, as they simply respawn. The first couple stages are pretty easy, with just 1 or 2 Octoling enemies to fight against. But in later levels you'll be pretty terribly outmatched, with Octolings having a range of powerful weapons, and you have to survive while still covering more turf than them by the end of the match. But don't worry, as the enemies get more plentiful, so do the power-ups. Later stages give you tons of tools to cover huge amounts of turf at once, giving you a chance to win at all times. There are a few boss battles against massive robotic Octarian creatures that stay in the center of the stage, and you have to balance covering turf with disabling the giant splatter shots above you. And if you get tired of beating levels, you can dive into the split-screen side mode. Here you can select the stage, weapons, and power-ups so you can play as many online or local multiplayer matches against each other as you want. This attraction is one of the biggest and best from the whole game, with lots of content and polish. Kid Icarus Cloud Battle is an on-rail shooter like Kid Icarus Uprising, with 18 high-quality levels to work through by yourself or with up to 4 players. This entire mode takes place in the sky, so there aren't any of the ground segments from Uprising. Twin-stick controls means this spin-off minigame is the best controlling Kid Icarus content ever, and all the levels are action-packed and lots of fun. The levels are also decently long with lots of enemy variety, making them really enjoyable to replay. This attraction gets pretty difficult by the end, with tons of enemies on screen attacking you. There's also a couple epic boss battles that will be a lot more manageable if you're playing with more than one person. Each level also keeps track of your high score that you get from defeating enemies and avoiding damage, adding even more depth to the gameplay. Cloud Battle also has a side mode like Splatoon Turf Wars where you can fight against each other in the sky, in an endless on-rails loop that continues until one of you loses all your lives. Whether you're completing levels or fighting against each other in local or online multiplayer, Kid Icarus Cloud Battle is one of the best minigames from Nintendo Land 2. Metroid Ridley's Revenge is a true sequel to Metroid Blast from the original game, with very similar gameplay, but all new levels and enemies to experience. There are 30 levels to complete, and also a versus side mode too. The new power suit designs look closer to Samus's look from Metroid Dread, and you can now slide under objects like in that game too. Honestly, the core gameplay of Metroid Blast is so strong that I don't have to add or change much, so this is just more of a good thing. You can use twin stick or motion controls, and although it isn't quite as good as the Wii Remote's pointer controls, it gets the job done. The core structure is the same as well, with massive stages that get reused across various levels, with enemy variety and difficulty getting better and more intense the closer you get to the end. Ridley has come back from the dead to haunt you, one of his many talents. The fights against Kraid and Ridley are like extra hard remixed versions of their originals, and there's even a new boss fight against an extra agile Ravenbeak. And of course you can still jump into the stages and fight against each other if you want to in the versus mode. If you loved the third-person shooting action of Metroid Blast, Metroid Ridley's Revenge is everything you could want from a sequel to that attraction. Another sequel to one of the original attractions, The Legend of Zelda Master Quest is even more of that core swordplay action that's so much fun. But this time around, taking inspiration from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you can choose from multiple different weapon types. There's a normal one-handed sword, a heavier two-handed weapon, a quick attack spear, or a long-distance bow and arrow. If you're playing with more than one person, the levels will change to require teamwork based around what weapons you have equipped, so get ready to use the power of friendship. And this time, instead of fighting the giant pig Ganon, you're going up against his more human form Ganondorf, making for a more intense one-on-one duel. There are 20 levels to play through, and overall it's pretty much the same as it was before, but with new level designs, enemies, weapons, and music tracks. Time Attack mode also returns, offering a fun side mode where you can try to get the best high score you can. Moving into the competitive attractions that require 2 or more players and are focused on player versus player action, we have Arms Arena. This is a brawl-style fighting attraction where you select your arms and battle it out in multiple different themed arenas. This one's pretty straightforward. You just punch and dodge until one of you gets knocked out. There's items that pop up around the arena during the match that you can pick up, that give you special power-ups like extra big or stretchy arms. The gameplay is basically a simplified version of normal arms, and you can still choose between using button or motion controls. There are 4 different arenas to choose from, with all of them having different mechanics you have to work around. One is low gravity where you move slower, and another has lots of walls everywhere that you either go around or punch through. This attraction is simple action fun for when you want to punch your friends in the face, or go up against random strangers online. Kirby's Cafe has you trying to complete orders for tons of Waddle Dee customers to make more money than everyone else. It's basically a combination of that one side minigame from Kirby and the Forgotten Land and Overcooked. Every player gets their own mini kitchen, and you have to race around grabbing the right ingredients while also throwing stuff into the other players' kitchens to try and mess them up. You grab ingredients by sucking them up like Kirby would, and then spitting them out onto the plate. And while that's super unsanitary, it's also super fun. Every once in a while bombs will drop in between the kitchens, and you have to try to be the first one to suck up the bomb and spit it into someone else's kitchen before they do the same to you. Every successful order earns you $1, but there are a few extra rich Waddle Dees that pay more than that, so you have to try and wave them over to your kitchen while balancing everything else. This attraction is super chaotic and frantic, leading to plenty of amazing moments. There's also a side mode where you have to work together in just one kitchen to try and survive the lunch rush. I'm honestly surprised Kirby didn't get his own attraction in the first game, but the sequel will fix that. Mario's Super Chase is not a very creative new name, I know, but it was already such a fantastic attraction in the first game, so I figured I'd keep it pretty much the same. In this attraction, one player plays as Mario and has to avoid getting caught by everyone else playing as Toads. This time everyone can actually jump up and down, turning this into a more 3D platformer style chase. Obviously the gamepad dual screen gameplay isn't possible anymore, so instead Mario's perspective is simply a circle in the middle of the screen, meaning you can't really hide your location anymore. So to make up for this, the amount of power-ups Mario can have has been increased dramatically. At random times and in random locations around the stages, items will be dropped for Mario to pick up. There's the Invincibility Star, which works the same as it did in the first game, the Ice and Fire Flowers, which can freeze and burn the Toads so they lose control of their character, the Tanuki suit that allows Mario to briefly float high above the heads of the Toads, the Bubble Flower that lets Mario throw bubbles that trap the Toads in a bubble for 10 seconds unless they get popped by another player, and finally, the Mini Mushroom that makes Mario smaller and harder to catch while also increasing his running speed. The fewer players on the Toad side, the fewer power-ups will drop from the sky for Mario. All the new stages have lots of verticality, giving Mario more routes to avoid getting caught. This attraction is fast-paced and intense, but is somehow super well balanced and fun for both sides. Animal Crossing Fruit Race has all the players running around various different island stages trying to collect the most fruit by the end of the match. You store fruit in your giant hat on your head that grows as you collect more, and you move slower the more you have, but you can drop fruit at any time to increase your speed again. Bumping into another player causes both of you to lose 3 fruit, and then it's a mad dash to pick it up again. The stages are pretty big, so you have to decide between avoiding everyone and picking up as much fruit as you can by yourself, or running into lots of people to steal their fruit at the last second. There's also some CPU animals walking around the island, and once they spot you, they'll run towards you and try to talk to you. If you let them get close enough, they'll start a short and boring conversation with you that can't be skipped, wasting your valuable time. And some fruit trees will have beehives in them, so bees will chase after you, and if they catch you, you'll get stung, decreasing your speed for 20 seconds. You can choose between either a timed match or a specific goal of fruit obtained. Like once a player reaches 30 fruit, they automatically win. You can try to team up with other players to take down the person with the most fruit, or maybe try and lead a CPU to a player that can't run fast enough to avoid them without dropping a few fruits. The more people you play with, the crazier this attraction gets. Now onto the single-player solo attractions, there's Rhythm Heaven Party. This one is pretty similar to the octopus dance from the first game, but this time the rhythm gameplay actually makes sense thematically. You have to dance to the beat of various Rhythm Heaven songs from across the series, controlling your arms with both joysticks. You can either choose specific songs to dance to, or play the main survival mode where you have to successfully get through all 10 songs without losing 3 hearts. This one is pretty simple, but lots of fun and really charming. Star Fox Journey to Space takes the place of Captain Falcon's Twister Race, being one long, straightforward obstacle course where you increase your speed at set intervals. You start off flying on the surface of Corneria, and slowly rise toward the sky and fly out into space, finishing by reaching the Great Fox headquarters ship. It plays like your typical on-rail Star Fox game, but the core difference this time is that Fox's firing system has been broken, so you can't fire back. This means you have to avoid obstacles and incoming enemy fire without being able to fight back, making this mode feel unique and different when compared to Kid Icarus Cloud Battle. Basically, I really love the gameplay of Twister Race, so this is just that again but with a Star Fox coat of paint instead of F-Zero. Punch-Out Training Time is totally focused on working out and preparing for the big fight. You have to practice hitting the punching bag, get your bench presses just right, try to catch up to your coach on his bike in front of you, and perfect your dodge timing. This one almost plays like a rhythm game, as you can get into a flow and master the many different skills you're working on. The goal of this attraction is to make it as far as possible, as the sets get faster and faster the longer you go. There is an end after a while, but it's pretty difficult to get to. Getting a better and better high score is very rewarding, and of course you have Doc Lewis shouting inspirational stuff at you the whole time. Xenoblade Monado Mayhem is a tower defense style minigame where you have to defend your hometown Colony 9 from the Mechon invasion, using the power of the Monado. Hordes of enemies will come from all angles, but you can cut through tons of Mechon at once thanks to the Monado's special abilities. There are 7 waves to get through, with things getting pretty hard by the end. This one is all about managing your time and keeping an eye on your map to make sure no corner of Colony 9 is getting overwhelmed. It's also super satisfying to cut through so many enemies at once, and the music remixes in this attraction are terrific. Also, everyone in this mode, including Monita, has a British accent. Pikmin Underwater Expedition has 10 stages for you to work through, but this time every stage takes place underwater on the ocean floor, so of course you can only use blue Pikmin, and all the enemies are underwater themed as well. Your goal for each stage is to go and collect a specific treasure at the end of the stage and bring it back to your ship, taking out enemies along the way for points. And the faster you do it, the more points you gain as well. But you only get a set number of Pikmin at the start of each stage, so be careful you still have enough at the end to grab the treasure. I know Pikmin's whole aesthetic is kind of the green forest type thing, but I've always loved the underwater sections and decided to theme this entire attraction around that. And finally, finishing off the solo attractions, there's Luigi's Phantom Mansion. I originally wanted to make this one of the competitive multiplayer attractions, but without the ability to be totally invisible to all the other players, it just doesn't work very well. So instead it's a sort of challenge mode where you have to make it through 10 rooms inside of a mansion and clear out all the ghosts hiding there. But the trick is, if you lose all your lives to the ghosts, you have to start all the way back at the first room, making this one of the more difficult attractions in the game. It controls similar to the original version, with extra powerful batteries showing up every now and then to help you out. This one is pretty spooky at times, with plenty of scary ghosts jumping out from around corners to try and take you out. And those are all 14 of the new attractions in Nintendo Land 2. I had a lot of fun coming up with the concepts for these minigames, and although I didn't go into tons of detail, hopefully you can get the basic idea of what I was going for with each one. There's so much potential for a new Nintendo Land game, and I just barely scratched the surface of all the possible franchises that could get represented in a party game like this. I really don't think it's very likely this game will ever actually happen, but I really enjoyed pretending it was real for a little while. Go ahead and let me know what all your concepts for a sequel to Nintendo Land are. I'd love to hear your ideas. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see ya in the next one.